Hello, I'm Andy.
And I'm Mark. It's all a bit confusing.
And have you got anything running in the background?
Why have you stopped moving?
Have you got anything running in the background?
Well, let me just close everything then. That.
Didn't we speak about this?
Yeah, but I don't have anything running. Last time it was things like, oh, hang on. No, that's where we're at. It was, I had Spotify going in the background.
Yeah.
But I don't. Let me just close these. All right, so now it's only, whatchamacallit,
Riverside.
Riverside, yeah, but it's still only 87%, 88%.
Yeah, mine's at 99. Cheers.
So, what the hell is that?
That's a glass of wine.
Yeah, but it's 4:30 in the afternoon.
Oh, call the police. There's an alcoholic on the loose.
Yeah, exactly.
You're getting too Swedish. 4:30 in the afternoon. That's basically post-lunch in London.
Well, you know what we were talking about it the other day, or was it me and Shane talking about this article in one of the tabloid newspapers in Sweden that if you had 10 beers a week and you went to the doctor's surgery, they would report you to the Transport Styrelse, so they'd take your license away.
They can't do that.
Well, no, they can't. It was all bollocks. But it was widely, the story went wide, whatever the word is, I can't remember. And Transport Styrelse actually had to send out a notice saying it's all bollocks. We have no control over what doctors can do.
You just cannot legally say, we've heard you drink a lot, so therefore we're taking your license. Even in this fucking communist fascist country.
You've got to be, I tell you what, you've got to be careful what you say, because if we go down the road as the US is now, literally that sort of comment and you'd be deported. You would literally be deported.
You can't deport me. I'm a Swedish citizen.
No, doesn't make a jot of difference. You know they're deporting American citizens.
Yeah, but that's because they can't tell the difference because their tattoos all look the same.
Well, they don't.
Fucking morons.
Oh, no, they are, truly. Now, before I forget, one annoying thing happened to me today, which I will relate because it's typical Swedish. I got a bloody stone chip on my windscreen.
Oh, well, that's every year.
I know. It's such a pain in the arse. I mean, I don't know which insurance company
you're with. It's right in the middle as well, isn't it?
Luckily not in the middle, but it's pretty close. You don't actually pay anything. It's free to repair. I mean, the insurance company pays something, but it doesn't cost me a penny.
As long as it doesn't crack.
If it cracks, I actually, on my insurance, I don't pay anything either.
What, you don't have a self-risk?
No, because I pay for the premium pack.
So you pay the self-risk up front?
Not quite as bad as that. I mean, it's close to it, but...
I mean, my self-risk on my last car, because it had a heated front windscreen, was 1,800 crowns, and I had to do it twice.
That's standard. All right, here's even more worrying for you, not for long, though, is that, do you know what the shelf risk on your car is if you have an accident?
I know what it is for a scratch on the paintwork.
It's not 1,800. It is, in fact, 7,500.
Yeah, that's what it was last time I had a scratch.
What?
Yeah, when the landlord scratched my car, he scratched the paintwork.
Oh, that's right.
On the rear wing.
That's right, yeah. Yeah.
I mean, they had it 2 days, basically.
Yeah.
It was basically, I don't know, sand it down, spray it, let it dry and give it back. 7,500 crowns. Didn't cost me that. It cost him.
Now, I asked a question at the beginning of last week's episode which we failed to come back to. Do you remember I asked you where they hid the drugs in the French Connection?
Oh, yeah.
So if you remember now, they dismantled the car.
Oh, it was built into the car.
It was built into the sills of the car.
Panels,
The sills of the car. Gene Hackman. So they found, talking of Gene Hackman, his missus died of respiratory disease as a result of rodent activity.
Apparently, but I mean, it's very strange.
Well, no, I mean, it's a disease that you can catch. And they found multitudes of rat nests in the garages and outbuildings to their ranch. And I have heard of this before. Inhaling the dust of dried rat shit can be very dangerous, as proven by this particular poor woman who died. And she's only 65. I don't think she had any underlying health issues. So if it can kill a healthy 65-year-old, it's obviously pretty serious. Because I did it once.
What, you killed a 65-year-old?
No,
Is that why you needed that fucking digger?
I've got two. I've literally got two diggers on the plot at the moment. A little one I borrowed from my neighbour. And I'll tell you what. I mean, I'm reasonably coordinated, but using a little digger machine is just a waste of time if you don't know what you're doing. If you're a competent digger driver, I'm sure it's absolutely fine. But for someone like me who's just a complete rank amateur...
It can't be much different to driving a forklift truck.
Well, it is, because you've got hand controls and foot controls.
Yeah, same as a forklift.
No, but you've got so many different... You've got a bloody arm that goes up. You've got a bucket that goes in and out. You've got twisty bits. You've got forward and back tracks.
See, as a computer gamer, I think I would probably be a bit of a Max Verstappen.
Yeah, exactly. I'm sure you would be. But anyway, so the other digger is a much, much bigger digger. I think it's 10 tons or something. So that's going to be fun because he's coming tomorrow. So, yeah.
Oh, well, so you were going to do it yourself, but you realised that you didn't have the competence.
No, I never imagined I would ever do it myself. To pay a bloke, whatever it is, 500 quid for his labour, to get it done properly. It would have taken me weeks because I'll tell you what, with the little digger, I was trying to dig out a new flower bed. So completely imprecise, just it didn't really matter what it looked like, sort of thing. And that took, I still haven't done it, still haven't finished it. And
how is it so hard?
Because you've got to get the digging out is no problem at all. The trick is to scoop up the dirt into the bucket and load it onto the trailer. Because what if you're an idiot like me or shit driving like me? All that happens is the pile just gets bigger and bigger, closer and closer to the digger machine, as you end up just sort of pulling the dirt towards you without getting it all into the bucket. So, it's just, it's mildly entertaining to do, but, anyway. So, so that's what I'm doing tomorrow. And other than that, obviously not too much has happened, apart from, what do you think's going on with Trump and the bloke from El Salvador?
I don't know.
Bum buddy from El Salvador.
Why?
Well, because they had a meeting in the White House, in the Oval Office.
Probably asking how many more Americans he can send over.
Well, that's what one of the reporters said. He said to the president, he said, well, that bloke that Trump sent across by mistake, are you going to return him? I told you about that hairdresser who had
a unicorn tattoo
on his side. And I don't know why I'm laughing. The poor fella, right, you're out. And the president said, well, no, that's just ridiculous. It's outrageous. Of course I can't send him back.
He's ours now.
Literally, that's basically what he said. He's ours. So this poor fellow, one day he's a hairdresser, a father, and a little baby boy, and then the next he's
is
in.
he?
Well, he is. He is a husband and father. What do you mean?
And a hairdresser.
I have to check. He is. I think he is a stylist, actually. Yeah.
That's
what do you
very.
mean? You don't. Don't be
That's
ridiculous.
very suspicious. I've never met a straight hairdresser.
Haven't you?
No.
All of my hairdressers have been straight.
Oh, no. You see, you think they are. You don't have gaydar, that's for sure.
What are you talking about? I'm just saying that all of my hairdressers have been women. I've never had a male hairdresser.
And how do you know they're not carpet munchers?
Because I know their husbands and they have children. They might be carpet munchers on the side, but certainly their default setting is definitely heterosexual. Anyway, so there's that poor bloke. So yeah, it's all quite interesting stuff, all quite exciting.
I saw Donald was having a go at Zelensky about starting a fight with Russia, who's 20 times his size.
But I mean, Donald Trump, one day he's blaming Zelensky, the next day he's blaming Russia, then he's blaming Zelensky again. But what is funny is that I think that one of Trump's things was I'm going to bring peace in 24 hours or something. And obviously he now realizes, and Putin has literally said, fuck off. I'm not interested in listening to you. So poor old Trump is stuck. He's basically got to just pick on the weaker of the parties so he can claim to have achieved something. But so there's no ceasefire, there's nothing. And that terrible attack. Anyway, and why people stop talking about Israel? Have you seen pictures of Palestine, Gaza Strip?
What's left of it?
Literally, what's left of it? It's just unspeakable. And I completely understand that Hamas are a complete bunch of nutters that shouldn't exist and should be stripped of any power. But when you think about what the Israeli authorities are saying about how cruel it is that these 100 hostages are still kept in captivity and inhuman. Well, what about the tens of thousands of dead people? They're not.
I mean, the Israelis are unfortunately every bit as bad as the Palestinians.
Well, specifically Netanyahu and crew. I mean, they're as bad as each other. But It's just unfortunate that Israel has all the military might and they're just destroying it. And then talk about a fascist state in America. First of all, it was Columbia University that they said, we're going to remove any funding for you because of the anti-Semitic. Donald Trump doesn't give a damn about Jewish people. All he wants to do is defund educational establishments so that people don't have half a brain to stand up to his nonsense. And yesterday, Harvard were being singled out to be defunded by the tune of $2 billion.
How are they even funded? They're the richest school in the world.
I was actually surprised that they do get money from the government, but I assume it's something like research grants that they get to actually do research, which is sponsored by the government, which is perfectly normal.
I would imagine that the old boy network at Harvard would keep them up and running for many hundreds of years to come.
I'm sure of it. But, it's sort of like it's becoming literally a textbook descent into fascism, into a fascist authoritarian state. I mean, it is literally textbook. You have the press officer who's just, is the word gaslighting? When they just blatantly tell the opposite of what is reality. And you've got educational establishments being picked on. You've got people being just arrested by masked men on the street and never heard of that. That woman I was talking about the other day, the PhD student, the Turkish woman?
Yeah.
But That was 2 or 3 weeks ago. No one knows where she is. She's just been disappeared. And if this is America, it's not bloody Russia or somewhere. Anyway, enough of a rant on that. Other than that, the weather's fine here. We've got literally 16 degrees and sunny outside.
Yes, same here. I've got the windows open. The cats are all outside.
Oh dear.
Enjoying
Have
the
you
sunshine.
ever tried, do you ever bother with tracking them? Do you know where they go?
Satan, I can see her. She's sunbathing over by my car. Reggie never travels far from the house. He might go around the outside edge.
Oh, really? He doesn't go into other people's barns or anything.
No, Ronnie, he's a bit of a ranger, but he comes back within an hour or two every time.
Oh, I see. So they don't disappear. Hang on a second. Didn't Satan disappear for 6 days at one stage?
She disappeared for 2.5 weeks.
Oh, really?
And then she disappeared again for another week.
Yeah, well, she's obviously met someone. He's obviously met someone. He or she? She has obviously met someone.
God, you've known her for like 4 years.
I know, but I get confused. It's not my bloody fault if you call a cat Satan, for God's sake.
I didn't give her that name.
She should be called Rosie, or what's a good
Beelzebub gave her that name.
What's a good female cat name? Tinkles.
Mrs. Fluffy Mittens.
Is that a bit Beatrix Potter? Fluffy Mittens? That's the sort of thing Beatrix Potter would have done. Anyway, the reason I ask is because here's something for you. You know what an Apple Air Tag is? Apple Tag, Air Tag, or whatever that it's called.
There's one in my scooter.
So, do you know how they work?
Yeah.
So, you know that your phone is acting as your phone or my phone or any Apple phone is used as a receiver for an Apple AirTag.
Yes.
Or a transponder.
Yes. But it also means that anyone else can couple up to that and track your Apple AirTag.
Or your phone or anything, I assume.
They're basically a load of shit.
Well, the thing is that Eva's just put one on one of her cats. When he disappears off into the forest, which just doesn't do anything because there's no phones nearby. It's only when he goes into a residential area where there are phones.
Yeah, it has to be within range.
Yeah, exactly.
It has to be within range.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not a GPS.
It is not a GPS, though it's much, much smaller. Yeah, but other than that, not too much to report. I mean, we only spoke a couple of days ago. I wonder if the listeners can tell that we're doing this in short order.
We're so far ahead that I can't even upload this episode until the end of the month because we don't have enough time left for this month's allocation.
Oh, is that right?
We've only got 24 minutes left of upload time.
Oh, dear.
So after today, you can basically take the next 2 Sundays off.
All right. Oh, well, that's good. Because this Sunday is Easter. And then the next Sunday, I forgot to tell you.
I'm going to England.
No, I'm going to Gothenburg. Driving the family down to Gothenburg. And I'm having the car service there. I have to drive 6 hours. I don't have to, but I chose to drive 6 hours just to have the car service.
Wonderful.
Yeah. Yeah. So yes. All right. So this week's production is as a result of your poor planning for last week's production. Am I correct in thinking that?
How do you figure that?
Because it was supposed to be 1 episode last week and it stretched into 2 because you couldn't stop talking nonsense.
Well, one of us was talking nonsense. The other person was saying some very interesting stuff. But
yeah, and we'll leave it up to the viewers, the listeners, to decide which of us was the interesting one or not.
But yeah, we overran a little bit and we didn't get to the main event, which is, if you remember, we were talking about various methods of smuggling drugs.
Well, we were talking about submarines, weren't we?
That was what we finished on. submarines.
Oh, no, that's right. And then we started talking about semi-submersibles, which you reckoned cross the Atlantic Ocean, which I just don't believe it, with 4 or 5 people on board.
Between 2 and 4 people, generally.
No, I'm sorry. That's another pyramid story.
People have solo sailed across the Atlantic.
Yeah, but you're not going to... I know people who have rowed across the Atlantic, but that doesn't mean you're going to have 5 tons of cocaine stuffed down your shorts.
Well, it doesn't matter whether you believe it or not. The fact is they are doing it, and that some of them have been caught after the fact. So it has been done, and it is being done.
I wouldn't choose a boat.
You don't really have a choice.
Of course you do. There are other means of transport.
Pablo Escobar is sitting there picking his teeth with his gun, saying, "Oh, fancy a trip on the submarine today? No one? Ah, fuck, I'll ask again tomorrow." You think that's how it goes down?
No, but I mean, when you think of an aeroplane, how much more... An aeroplane's designed for smuggling drugs.
Aeroplanes are very visible.
Yeah, but you just offload the shit out the door. I mean, what are they going to do? They can't stop you mid-flight. You have to land somewhere.
No, you don't. Aircraft generally drop the drugs with parachutes at a pre-designated landing pickup spot.
Exactly. That's exactly my point.
Yes, but
so you can't intercept an aeroplane mid-flight and search the plane.
You can. That's what US Air Force jets are for. You can force a plane to land under threat of destruction.
Yeah, but you can't force a plane not to open its door and drop the drugs out the side.
If you're coordinating an interception at that point, then you would have ground forces ready to intercept the drugs that came out of the plane.
No.
Look, I'm not going to argue semantics about a drug fucking operation that you obviously know nothing about.
I'm just saying, if I was a drug smuggler, I would use an aeroplane, not a bloody boat with 4 people on board, semi-submersible. They travel at what, 20 miles an hour, and you got to cross the Atlantic. You get in an aeroplane, it's 120 miles an hour.
Yeah, and the chances are much greater of being caught. It's all about subterfuge. The chances of finding a submarine in the Atlantic Ocean are fucking slim. The chances of finding a DC-10 or a 707...
They don't use DC-10.
They use fucking jumbo jets.
They probably use a Gulfstream.
No. Look, let's talk about today's subject instead of talking nonsense.
All right, so what is today's subject? I was just about to say, have you seen the series Landman?
Again? Every week you say this.
No, I know, but they do exactly that. They steal the aeroplane. In fact, they borrow the aeroplane, and then they return it 2 weeks later, having used it for a drug run. And
no one notices it's had 3,000 miles on the clock.
They do notice, but the thing is, if they report the plane is missing or stolen to the police, then it takes months to get it back. So all they do is they don't say anything to anybody, and they know that the plane will be returned once the drugs have been smuggled.
Well, this chap did one better. So if you'll let me, I'll fucking tell you. Jesus. So the most successful that we know of drug smuggler is a chap called Adler Berriman Seal.
No.
He was known as Barry.
Thank you.
He was born in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, the son of Mary Lou and Benjamin Curtis Seal, who was a candy wholesaler.
What, literally?
Yeah, I guess. He was born 16th of July 1939. His father, as well as being a sweet shop salesman, was
he was a wholesaler. He didn't have a shop.
Well, a salesman. He was also a member of the Ku Klux Klan.
Oh dear. Friends with Donny.
Yeah, Donny Osmond.
Dead.
What?
I think Donny Osmond died, didn't he?
No, Donny Osmond is immortal. Like Marie, she's not dead. I know that.
Carry on. I'm going to check that because I have a feeling that poor old Donny popped his clogs.
Anyway, Seal became obsessed with aircraft as a kid, and he took his first solo flight at the age of 15.
Not allowed.
I don't care if it's not allowed. This is a fucking drug smuggler. He does what he wants.
Not at 15, he wasn't.
And he got his pilot's license at 16. And he was soon making a living towing advertising banners. In 1955, he joined the Civil Air Patrol in Baton Rouge, or CAP, as it became known. And soon afterwards, he took part in a CAP joint training mission with the New Orleans unit, which was run by a chap called David Ferry. Now, according to John Odom, a fellow CAP member, Seal met Lee Harvey Oswald during this training.
Lee Harvey Oswald, the assassination man of JFK?
The alleged assassination man of JFK. The murder victim of the CIA.
We've done that, actually.
Yes, we did. Tosh Plumley claims that Barry Seal began working for the CIA in the mid-1950s.
There we go. He's a goodie.
Barry Seal was involved with military intelligence in the early days. Military intelligence was the real game, with the CIA just acting as logistical people. Barry was a peripheral player back then, but he was definitely a CIA contract pilot all the way back to 1956 or 57. Now, in 1958, Seal began ferrying weapons to Fidel Castro, who was fighting against the Batista regime in Cuba.
What was that called? There was a scandal when this came out. It was a scandal. Weapons to... Anyway, carry on. It was a well-known scandal in the media for a long time that the Americans were supplying weapons to.
At the time, a section of the CIA was supporting the overthrow of Batista. However, the policy changed soon after Castro got power, and Seal is said to have taken part in air attacks on the new government.
Mm-hmm.
The following year, Barry Seal became a CIA pilot in Guatemala. It's also believed that he was involved in training Cuban exiles on No Name Key in Florida and on the north shore of Lake Pontchartrain in Louisiana. He also ran a couple of companies based in Baton Rouge, Seal Sky Services and Aerial Advertising Associates, and he had an office in the International Trade Center run by a chap called Clay Shaw. Now, it was claimed that Barry Seal was a member of Operation 40 in the early 1960s, and Operation 40 meant that he flew in killer teams inside the island of Cuba before the invasion to try and take out Fidel. In December 1962, Seal joined the 21st Special Forces Group and attended the Fort Benning Jump School. And in May 1963, he was assigned to Company D Special Operations Detachment of the 20th Special Forces Group Airborne. So he was basically a Navy SEAL.
So he was a military pilot up until when? 60 what?
This is 63.
63.
So he's still 19.
Flyer.
He's still 19 at this stage.
What?
Yes, he was born in 54. Or, no, 30, I can't remember.
39. He was born in 39.
39. Okay, so he's still 23, 24.
Yeah.
He's young. Tosh Plumley claims that Barry Seal also worked for Ted Shackley and the CIA, saying Barry Seal did a lot of damn good stuff in the late 60s. In 67 and 68, he was with Air America in South Vietnam and Laos.
Seen the film.
During Search and Destroy and Special Ops with Ted Shackley's boys. He'd been recruited for Special Ops because of the Cuban thing. On the 1st of July 1972, Barry Seal was arrested in New Orleans and accused of sending C4 explosives to anti-Castro Cubans in Mexico.
Who was he accused by? Well, the American authorities wouldn't have accused him of that.
I don't know. A DC-4 was seized at the Shreveport Regional Airport, loaded with almost 7 tons of plastic explosives.
Yeah, DC-4, that's quite a big aeroplane, isn't it?
Yes. 7,000 feet of explosive primer cord and 2,600 electric blasting caps. That's a lot of explosives. James Miller, Richmond Harper, Marlon Hagler, and Murray Kessler were also arrested with Seal. And Kessler's partner, Manny Gambino, of the crime family, no doubt, was kidnapped around the same time that the others were arrested. His corpse was later found in a New Jersey garbage dump.
Oh dear.
The DC-4 was owned by James Boy, who was a known associate of the CIA. Boy's aircraft were later used to fly Oliver North's mercenaries in and out of Honduras. The man who organised the entrapment of Seal and his friends was called Cesario Diosdado, an official with the United States Customs. It took the authorities over 2 years to bring Barry to trial, and when it finally got underway in June 1974, government prosecutors promptly introduced into evidence an automatic weapon that had nothing at all to do with the charges against the defendants. A mistrial was declared, and Seal and his fellow defendants were freed. According to Pete Bruton, in a book called The Mafia, CIA and George Bush, as soon as Seal was freed, he began working full-time for the CIA, travelling back and forth from the United States to Latin America. Now, you can take from what happened in the courtroom that they purposely forced a mistrial to get him out so they could use him.
But at this stage, all he's been he's been focusing on smuggling weapons is effectively for the US government, though.
Yes.
He's not a privateer at this
unofficially.
stage.
But
yeah,
unofficially.
Exactly.
Which is probably why he got arrested by the customs.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah.
So Daniel Hopsicker claimed that Seal was now sheep-dipped into the DEA as an agent for the Special Operations Group. And Seal worked under Lucien Conein, who ran secret missions for the DEA. I mean, for as long as those fucking agencies have been in existence, all they do is set people up. If there isn't a crime being committed, they fucking make a crime to be committed. And then they go in to make themselves look good. What a bunch of cunts.
You are unbelievable.
No, but they are. Do you know, when I was on jury duty,
oh my God, they didn't put you on jury duty, did they?
At the Old Bailey, no less.
No.
Yep, and there were 2 Turkish guys accused of smuggling heroin, stacked inside these 2 speedboats that were imported.
And were you the only one that found them innocent?
How do you know I found them innocent?
Did you?
As it happens, the evidence was pretty fucking damning up until they questioned the customs and excise guys. And it turns out that the customs and excise guys had rented the vehicle that the guys had used to transport the stuff. They provided the speedboat that the stuff was being packed into. They set up the whole fucking thing in Turkey from start to finish and got these two guys to act as fucking muppets to facilitate it. And that's why they got found not guilty. It was a fucking setup from start to finish.
So what's that called in legal terms? Encatchment or something? What is it?
Entrapment.
Entrapment.
And it was disgraceful. I mean, it was just...
Was it a unanimous verdict to dismiss the case?
Only one of them got found not guilty. The other one, we couldn't get a decision on. I mean, I don't want to talk to you about jurors. They're a special breed of people all on their own.
What do you mean? One woman. They're the opposite of a special breed. They're representative of everybody.
No, they're not.
Well, you got on board.
The retards are represented much more on jury selection, I can tell you.
Not a word we use these days, but carry on.
What, jury or selection? There was one woman who would basically change her mind depending on how quickly we could go home. Oh, guilty then. No, you can't just say guilty if you don't think he's guilty. Okay, not guilty. Well, no, you can't just say... It's like, fucking hell. Oh, I hated it. But it was an interesting experience.
So how long? That sounds like it took a long time. That sounds like a long case. How long were you there for?
I think that trial was about 2.5 weeks.
Oh, is that all?
Yeah.
All right.
I would have been happy to go longer because I was getting wage compensation to the tune of about 80 quid a day, I think.
So, anyway, what were you talking about? Oh, yeah, the DEA is set up simply to entrap people.
Yeah. Yeah.
So they never actually catch any genuine drug smugglers, or genuine drug smugglers don't exist.
Or no, but they certainly can't get the top people, the cartel leaders, because they just don't have a clue.
Well, I think the story that you are relating now is about to counter that opinion.
Barry Seal is not a top dog. He's a fucking mule.
Why are we doing a programme about him then?
Because he was a successful mule.
How successful are we talking about?
It doesn't mean he's a top dog. We'll get to how successful. Egil Cruff, who was employed by Richard Nixon as liaison to the FBI and the DEA, later admitted that he placed Cronin in the Office of Narcotics in the White House. According to Deborah Seal, her husband first became involved in drug smuggling in 1975.
He was married?
Yes. He wasn't a hairdresser. On the 10th of December 1979, Barry Seal and Steve Planter were arrested in Honduras after arriving from Ecuador with 40 kilos of cocaine. Newspapers reported that 25 million quid's worth of cocaine was confiscated, and the men were charged with having 17 kilos in their possession. Seal spent 9 months in prison before being released without charge.
Can you?
In Honduras, Ecuador, pretty much.
Oh, so they were arrested in Honduras.
Now, while he was in prison, Seal met a chap called Roger Reeves, a fellow drug smuggler who worked for the Ochoa family of Medellín. In 1981, Reeves, Ochoa's business manager in New Orleans, introduced Seal to Felix Bates. As a result, Seal began a close relationship with the Colombians and became part of what became known as the Medellín Cartel. Established in 1980, the Medellín Cartel began when Jorge Ochoa convinced the major cocaine families to contribute 7 million quid or $7 million each for the formation of a 2,000-man army in order to destroy the Marxist revolutionary group M19 that was causing the drug barons problems in Colombia. Drug barons such as Jorge Ochoa and Pablo Escobar now began working together. It's been estimated that the cartel made up to $60 million a month, and its leaders joined the list of the world's richest men. The CIA were watching all this with interest. It decided that the Medellín Cartel could be used to help defeat communism throughout Latin America, because why not? According to Leslie Cockburn, CIA agent Felix I. Rodriguez persuaded the Medellín Cartel to make a $10 million contribution to the Contras. By 1982,
that was it, wasn't it?
The Contras, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. That was the scandal. Yes, that was the scandal. The Contras.
By 1982, Barry Seal was bringing drugs into the United States on behalf of the Medellín Cartel. Seal moved his base of operations from Louisiana to Mina, an obscure airport in the secluded mountains of western Arkansas. Seal told friends that he once made $1.5 million on a single cocaine flight. Seal worked directly for Sonia Atala, the CIA-protected drug baron. It is also claimed that Seal's fleet of planes to ferry supplies to Contra camps in Honduras and Costa Rica. His planes also made return trips to airstrips in the mountains of Colombia and Venezuela. And according to Roger Morris, his well-connected and officially protected smuggling operation based in Mina accounted for billions in drugs and arms.
So he was flying arms down from the States.
Yep, and coming back
into South America,
loaded with white fucking gold.
And came back with cocaine. I mean, he was quite an astute businessman.
No, he was protected.
No, that's what I mean. He was quite astute to get himself into that situation. Assuming he hasn't been rotting in jail for the last 20 years.
So he also obtained 2 brand new multi-million-dollar Beechcraft King Air 200s. According to Daniel Hopsicker, these aircraft were purchased by a Phoenix-based operation that acted as a front. And this company also owned Southern Air, which was a CIA proprietary, connected to William Casey, Richard Secord, Felix I. Rodriguez, and George W. Bush. Seal also owned a Learjet. It had previously been owned by Reggie and Bill Whittington, and in 1981 these brothers were arrested and charged in Florida with importing 400,000 pounds of marijuana and evading taxes on $73 million. The Learjet was then passed on to Seal. It was registered as being owned by Intercontinental Holding, which was a CIA front company in the Cayman Islands. In March 1984, Seal was indicted at Fort Lauderdale in Florida for smuggling quaaludes and laundering money. Former undercover narcotics investigator Stan Hughes told Daniel Hopsicker that when Barry got busted on the quaalude thing and I heard about there being government intervention to save his ass, I didn't believe it at first, but talk to any smuggler and they'll tell you they can always buy their way out of a dope deal. In an attempt to avoid an expected 10-year sentence, Seal made contact with George W. Bush. He then appeared before a secret session of Bush's task force on drugs in Washington, where he testified that the Sandinistas were directly involved in drug trafficking in the United States. Seal claimed that the Medellín Cartel had made a deal with the Sandinistas, awarding them cuts of drug profits in exchange for the use of an airfield in Managua as a transshipment point for narcotics. And this news was welcomed by President Reagan, who wanted to launch an all-out war on the Sandinistas in Nicaragua. The DEA was now put under pressure to enlist Seal as an undercover informant with a special emphasis on the Nicaraguan connection.
So do I take it he's stopped actually flying drugs in at this stage?
No. No, of course not. He's a drug smuggler. I mean, that's what he does. Seal agreed to organise a sting operation where he managed to get a photograph of Pablo Escobar helping Nicaraguan soldiers to load 1,200 kilos of cocaine on a C-123 military cargo plane.
1.2 tons. I wonder what that looks like. Must be the size of a car.
Quite large.
A few pallet loads.
Soon afterwards, Reagan went on TV with the photograph to denounce the Sandinistas as drug smugglers corrupting American youth. You should see what you got now, mate. As a result of Seal's cooperation in setting up this sting, the judge in Florida reduced his sentence from 10 years to 6 months probation. The judge praised Seal for his work against the Sandinistas and pointed out that when an informant puts his life on the line to help the forces of law and order, they deserve just compensation.
Sorted.
So I'm surprised he didn't actually get a medal.
Maybe he did secretly.
He also offered to provide information to the DEA implicating federal officials in the Iran-Contra scandal. Do you want to answer that?
No. I'll just message, yeah. Carry on.
This included Richard Benveniste, the Watergate prosecutor, who played a crucial role in the successful fight to secure the secret Richard Nixon White House tapes. Benveniste represented both Barry Seal and Bill Clinton in the early 1980s. And Benveniste also served as chief counsel to the Senate Whitewater Committee. However, the authorities weren't interested in this particular information. In December of 1984, Seal was again arrested in Louisiana after flying in a cargo of marijuana. After paying $250,000 bond, he was released and returned to drug smuggling. In return, Seal provided information that resulted in the US government obtaining 17 criminal convictions. Seal told investigators that between March 1984 and August 1985, he made $250,000 smuggling up to 15,000 kilos of cocaine while working for the DEA, and another $575,000 when the DEA let him keep the money from one of the shipments. Barry Seal appeared before the judge Frank Polazzola in Baton Rouge on the 20th of December 1985, and found guilty of 2 drug felony convictions. He was sentenced to 6 months supervised probation. A condition of the sentence was that he had to spend every night from 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. at the Salvation Army halfway house on Baton Rouge's Airline Highway Strip. Judge Polazzola barred him from carrying a gun or hiring armed guards. Barry Seal told his friends, "They made me into a clay pigeon." Barry Seal was asked by his close friend, Rennie Martin, if he feared being killed by the Ochoa family, and Barry Seal replied that he wasn't afraid of the Colombians because he hadn't really implicated senior members of the organisation. He was more worried about his contacts within the US government. And this view was supported by Louis Unglesby, Seal's lawyer. He confirmed that the man Seal was willing to testify against in particular was George W. Bush.
No.
Yep. On the 19th of February 1986, Barry Seal returned to his Salvation Army hostel at 6 o'clock. As he parked his white Cadillac, he was approached by a man carrying a machine gun. Two quick bursts hit Seal's head and body. One of Seal's friends, Russ Eakin, observed the killing. I saw Barry get killed from the window of the Belmont Hotel coffee shop. The killers were both out of the car, one on either side, but I only saw one shoot, because Barry saw it coming and just put his head down on the steering column. Over the next few days, the police received information that enabled them to arrest several men for the killing of Barry Seal, and these included Miguel Velez, Bernardo Vasquez, Luis Quintero Cruz, John Cardona, Eliberto Sanchez, and Jose Renteria.
They all had something in common, those lot, didn't they?
Yes, they were very not American.
Hmm.
A seventh, Rafa Cardona, managed to escape back to Colombia. He was murdered later that year.
So who do we suspect hired these people? George W. Bush?
Yeah, I would say it was a blue-on-blue exercise. Eliberto Sanchez and John Cardona were deported and never appeared in court for the crime. Nor did Jose Cutin, who supplied the weapons for the killing of Seal. However, he wasn't charged with any crime and instead testified in court against Miguel Velez, Luis Quintero Cruz, and Bernardo Vasquez. According to Leslie Cockburn, Cutin was also a CIA asset. One of those originally arrested, Jose Renteria, took photographs of the dead guy inside the car, and when his camera was confiscated by an FBI agent at a New Orleans airport, it was opened and the film inside was exposed. While being interrogated, Renteria claimed that Jose Cutin was linked to Oliver North. However, this information was never produced in court, as Renteria was not charged with the murder and was instead deported to Colombia. So they're basically getting rid of all these people so that there's no court case, no trial.
What's interesting to me is that, I keep ranting on about the absurdity of what's going on in America now.
It's always been going on.
But I was going to say, it sounds like it's always been going on. It's just, it's a bit more in your face these days. They don't even bother hiding it. But, sorry, W. Bush, he was a Republican, wasn't he?
I have no idea.
Well, I think he was. I think he definitely was. Carry on.
Miguel Velez, Luis Quintero Cruz and Bernardo Vasquez were found guilty of Barry Seal's murder and sentenced to life terms without parole. And the official story was that Jorge Ochoa had murdered Seal in order to stop him testifying at his US trial, yet Ochoa had never stood trial in the US, and nor did Seal appear to be afraid of Ochoa. His concern was with George Bush and the CIA. For example, Barry Seal's secretary, Dandra Seal, no relation, doesn't believe that the Medellín Cartel carried out the assassination. The CIA people here allowed it to happen. He had a chart, he had dirt on anybody and everybody. And further evidence comes from Dee Ferdinand. She told Daniel Hopsicker that her father, Al Carone, was a CIA paymaster and a colonel in Army intelligence, and he'd been sent to Dallas to pay off Jack Ruby before the assassination of John F. Kennedy. She also claimed that 33 years later, Carone performed the same function for the killing of Barry Seal. According to FAA investigator Rodney Stitch, Carone was Oliver North's bagman.
Sorry, remind me who Oliver North was?
Why do I know? He was one of the American generals who was Operation Sandstorm or Desert Storm.
All right.
Colonel Oliver North. He was the one who was always on English TV telling people what was going down.
All right.
Richard Sharpstein, who was a defense attorney for one of Seal's assassins, Miguel Velez, said all three Colombians who went on trial always said they were being directed, after they got into this country, on exactly what to do and where to go by an anonymous gringo. a US military officer who they very quickly figured out was Oliver North. There was apparently another reason why George Bush wanted Seal dead. According to friends, Seal had a copy of a videotape of a 1985 DEA cocaine sting which had netted George Bush's two sons, George and Jeb, picking up kilos of cocaine at Florida airport. So George Bush Jr. was a fucking drug smuggler.
It's just allegedly.
Look, I would believe these rather than the Bushes. They are a scumbag family, like every presidential family.
But has anybody ever been charged?
No, of course not. This is why they got rid of all the Colombians. They brought them into the country to do the job and got them out again.
Because this is just like the last one, Biden and his son Hunter Biden,
yes,
who was involved
Russians.
in all this, Ukraine actually. But yeah, you're right. Yes. I mean, what is it?
They're just fucking. They all think they're James Bond. They're just fucking scummy people.
So, do we really think now that the reason why someone like Trump is in power in America is because the whole fucking place is just full of corruption and...
Well, that's what government is, isn't it? It's just a melting pot of
I'm talking about,
corruption.
Yeah, but, yeah.
After his death...
Who's Barry?
Barry's. His widow, Debbie, received a $29 million jeopardy assessment from the IRS. And this has been claimed it was a strategy to stop her from talking to any reporters. So that while they said she owed them $29 million, they would not claim it as long as she behaved herself.
That is interesting. So this is all official. This isn't your made-up internet nonsense. I mean, this is actually official.
Yep.
So whatever happened to her? Because she must be almost dead now.
Well, while defending herself from the IRS charge, she discovered a frequently called phone number in Barry's records. And when she dialed it, she discovered it belonged to the Defense Intelligence Agency, and she was told to never call it again. Later that day, the Defense Intelligence Agency phoned her back. Debbie, you're young, you have a whole life ahead of you, and you have your kids to think about. Don't call anyone in Washington ever again. On the 5th of October, 1986, a Sandinista patrol in Nicaragua shot down a C-123K cargo plane that was supplying the Contras. That night, Felix Rodriguez made a telephone call to the office of George W. Bush. He told a Bush aide, Samuel Watson, that the aircraft had gone missing. Eugene Hassenfuss, an Air America veteran, survived the crash, and he told his captors that he thought the CIA was behind the whole operation. He also provided information that several Cuban Americans running the operation in El Salvador, and this resulted in journalists being able to identify Rafael Quintero, Luis Posada and Felix Rodriguez as the Cuban Americans mentioned by Hassenfuss. And that was the beginning of the Iran-Contra scandal.
Iran-Contra scandal, that was it.
The C-123K cargo plane that had been shot down had previously been owned by Barry Seal. Eugene Hassenfuss later claimed it was sheer coincidence that a plane once owned by Seal was now part of a secret network led by Oliver North. Now, early on in Seal's aviation career, after he left the army, because he was active service for only about a year and non-active for about 4, And on the 4 years that he was non-active, he was basically a radio telephone operator. But in 1964, Seal joined TWA as a flight engineer. And he was soon promoted to first officer and then captain, flying a Boeing 707 on regular Western European routes. He was one
What?
of... Yes.
In all of this?
Yes.
He was a TWA pilot
This
as
was
well.
early. This was 1964.
So he was 25 at that stage?
Yeah, this was just after he left the army, basically. He was one of the youngest 707 command pilots in the TWA fleet. And his career with TWA ended in July 72 when he was arrested for his involvement in a conspiracy to smuggle the plastic explosives to Mexico using a DC-4. That case was actually dismissed, as we know, due to prosecutorial misconduct. But in the meantime, TWA fired Barry, who had been falsely taking medical leave to participate in the scheme.
So he wasn't exactly a good one, but he wasn't exactly a bad one.
Well, he
just took advantage of the situation that presented itself.
He was a fully employed, very professional and adept pilot who just wanted a bit of excitement. He had no reason to smuggle drugs. He just wanted to.
He died in 86.
Yeah.
So he was 47 years old.
I mean, you mentioned last week the film with Tom Cruise.
Yeah, that was the scene where everybody has arrested him, the DIA, the FBI, the police, and they're all standing in the prosecutor's office, and he says, I'm going to walk out of here in 15 minutes.
Yeah.
And they said, you'll be lucky. And sure enough, was it the president who calls the prosecutor and says, he's a good mate of mine?
Yes, Mr. President. Yeah, I mean, the thing is, the film doesn't do him justice because his real life was so fucking mental that if you put it in a film, no one would believe it. It would be too outrageous. But yeah, that's the story of Barry Seal.
So what happened to his missus?
I cannot tell you.
With her 29 million, what was her name?
She didn't have 29 million. She owed 29 million.
No, but one assumes that she was able to, she must have had a decent chunk of money. He earned a bloody fortune over the years.
Well, I would imagine he'd stashed some somewhere for her use.
Your getaway.
Her go bag.
Exactly. Let's go. All right, Barry Seal. But, you know, it's interesting to do these stories, actually, in spite of me always criticising you for the bollocks that you come up with, because the more you listen to these stories, it actually does explain a lot of what we think of as completely outrageous behaviour today. You know, as I'm saying, you know, I think that what Trump is doing is absolutely outrageous. But when you listen to these sort of stories, it's been going on for years, and maybe I'm just stupid or naive to think that, you know, I just assume that most presidents, they may have done questionable things, but sort of are inherently...
Don't you remember the Watergate tapes?
No, you're right. But it's sort of, when you put it all together, it's pretty depressing. Maybe we should be celebrating Trump, because at least he does it in plain sight. He doesn't even try to disguise it. Whereas all these other guys pretend to be, you know, good actors when in fact they're not.
I mean, look at Bill Clinton and that fucking hag that he married.
Hillary.
They're a pair of really bad actors.
Well, you say that, and you may well be right. I'm sure they deserve some of their reputation. But one thing I found a bit distressing, because obviously I'm leaning towards the Democrats in American politics because I'm a bit of a liberal. But what was really disturbing the other day is I found out that Nancy Pelosi, you know, basically the leader of the Democrat Party.
I don't, but I'll take your word for it.
Nancy, she has enormous enormous wealth, mainly derived from
slavery.
Well, no, not slavery, but, sort of very lucky stock picking.
Very lucky, yeah.
Like
There's
this
no such thing.
Well, clearly not. And in fact, I saw that US politicians have to declare their stock holdings.
Oh, yeah, but they don't.
Well, whatever. But I saw a comparison the other day of they actually input all of the politicians' stock picks and their holdings over a 5-year period or 10-year period, whatever it was. And then they had the S&P tracking on the bottom. And the politicians, for some extraordinary reason,
got everything right.
were able to outperform the index by a substantial factor, even compared to someone like Warren Buffett, who is the man in terms of stock picking. Amazingly, the politicians were able to outperform them all.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just what's going on?
Yeah, the whole game is rigged. Everything is rigged.
Clearly. Oh, excuse me, Andy. It's watching you drinking all that wine.
Oh, it's delicious. I'm going to have another glass when I'm finished here.
You can't have another glass. That's nearly half a bottle in that single glass you've got there.
You can't open a bottle and not finish it. That's against the law.
Well, I told you, a bottle of wine, probably a week or more in my house.
But actually, it's been in my house for a week. I bought this wine when I was out with Robin 2 Fridays ago.
All right.
So not last Friday, but the Friday before.
All right. So are you doing any socialising over the Easter holidays?
Absolutely not. I've been socialising. I have actually been out for lunch, met up with Robin yesterday.
All right, good.
But to be honest, I am really enjoying having nothing to do at the moment.
Oh, God.
No, I am. It's like with taking a week off work, it's always in the back of your mind that you've still got to go to work next week. But now that's not there, I'm completely and utterly relaxed.
The opposite of what most people would be feeling.
No, I mean,
well, good on you.
It's fucking fabulous. I mean, I don't know. I might get used to this. I'm wondering now if I can swing it so that I can perhaps just study for the remainder of my working life.
Have you ever taken out a CSN student loan in Sweden?
Nope.
I don't think there's an age limit.
No, there is. It's 65. I still qualify. I can still get paid to study.
But hang on a second. Is that you have to start studying before 65 or you have to finish studying before 65?
I don't know. I was talking about it with someone at work. But if I can find the right course that I can do distance, I'll be quite happy to stay at home and get paid to study.
Yeah, but I think you've got to choose a course that you can complete by the age of 65.
Well, that's fine.
That's 2 years.
No, that's 3 years.
I thought you were 64.
How do you figure that?
63. Or you're
I'm
1
62.
year younger. Oh, I see. So you got 3 years.
Well,
That's
years.
A degree course.
Yeah.
You could actually do something quite useful.
Like gender and queer studies.
For God's sake. No, but you could do something useful. You are surprisingly well read. The only thing is you would actually have to do the work because you can't. If you don't do the study, they don't pay you.
No, but that's not a problem if I study something I have an interest in. I mean, for example, film and media, or there must be something in the recording digital media thing that I could probably get financed on.
digitalization.
I can actually get paid to do this shit.
Yeah. Why don't you do something like social media studies?
No,
Then you could
I
become
can't
an
do social media.
Influencer.
No, I fucking hate social media.
Digitalization. Something like that.
I wonder if there's one like Hacking 101.
Have you ever done any programming?
Yes. In the olden days when we used COBOL, Pascal, and Basic.
C++.
Not even C++, Basic.
What were you doing when you learned how to do that? Or did you do it for fun?
Your whole
Oi!
thing there just froze.
I said, what were you doing when you learned how to program, or did you just do it for fun?
I was doing the first year of a degree course in computer programming at the University of Central London.
I missed the subject. A university course in what?
Programming.
Oh, programming. All right.
Yeah. I didn't complete it, unfortunately, because I discovered Greece.
What,
they made the mistake of... Because in those days, we used to get student grants. And,
that's right, 3,300 a year, I can tell you.
Yeah, and they sent it in 2 lumps. And about, I think, 3 months into the first year, I got my second check, and it coincided with a trip to Greece, and I just didn't come back.
God. It's not a bad idea, Andy, but, all right, so if you take out a CSN loan, what happens to your ARCA, son?
You can have one or the other. You can't have both.
You can't have both?
No, but at least if I am subsisting on the CSN, I don't have to fucking justify looking for 2 jobs a week. Because that's what I have to do at the moment. I have to apply for 2 jobs a week and report it to the Arbits for Medellín. And you'd be amazed at how hard it is to find 2 jobs a week.
To apply for. And can you do any course, or does it have to be with some hope of some gainful employment?
Oh, I think you can do anything, as long as it's... I'm sure they've got an approved list.
But the thing is, the sort of areas that you do have interest in, realistically could lead to a job.
Yeah. Yeah. But,
Izzy's doing a distance course for 3 years.
Yes, but you've got to understand that nobody is going to employ me anyway.
No, but that's why I'm saying you could steer yourself towards something that you could work as a consultant. Some sort of digital somethings or other. As I say, Izzy's doing something similar.
Yeah. Anyway, listen, we've got to wrap this up because we're still recording here.
Oh, I see. So, all right. Well, bye.
Thanks for listening to the story. I hope we didn't fuck with your mind too much for the last 10 minutes. But join us again next week, which in reality is about a month away for us. And we'll talk about something completely different. Have yourselves a strange week. If you're going to smuggle cocaine, do it in style, do it by the plane load or use a submarine. And feel free to stop off at my place for a cuppa and let me sample the goods. See you same time next week. Bye for now.
Bye for now.